film begins with a woman waking up in a hotel room where she discovers a lifeless body beside her. Surprisingly unfazed, Emily proceeds to examine her own body in a mirror, acknowledging a knife wound in her abdomen. The weapon responsible lies nearby. Subsequently, she dismembers the body and places the pieces into garbage bags, transporting them to a barn. To eliminate any traces, she incinerates the pieces, and the resulting ash is discreetly buried. Returning to town, Emily spends hours in a cafe, seemingly rediscovering aspects of her own life with an air of unfamiliarity. Later, back at her residence, she attempts to maintain composure by indulging in smoking. Out of the blue, her boyfriend James pays an unexpected visit, furious over her 3-day disappearance and unresponsive texts. Learning that he even involved the police, Emily, fearing the consequences, attempts to pacify James through affection. However, he rejects her advances and reaches for his phone to contact the authorities again. Faced with desperation, Emily resorts to fatally stabbing him in the neck with a corkscrew. She then conceals his body in the basement, meticulously cleaning the aftermath and laundering any blood-stained clothes. Additionally, Emily ingests a significant amount of medication. The following morning, Emily is astonished to witness her body undergoing rapid decay, a development she hadn't anticipated. Shortly after, Detective Freddy arrives at her home, growing suspicious as she returned without notifying James. In response to his probing questions, Emily invites him for coffee. Seizing the opportunity, she grabs Freddy's hand and initiates a life-absorbing process. It becomes apparent that the entity posing as Emily is a shape-shifting being, eliminating others to acquire their bodies. Leaving the authentic cop's body desiccated, the imposter relishes the newfound authority, practicing saying Freddy's name and inspecting the firearm. Subsequently, Freddy uses a hammer to extract the teeth from the corpse to prevent identification and douses the entire house with gasoline. On his way out, a chance encounter with a delivery man leads to the theft of food without payment. In Freddy's stolen police car, the delivery man attempts to intervene, but a sudden blaze engulfs the house. Freddy proceeds to visit local dealers who recognize him as the corrupt cop always assisting them. He pilfers some happy powder and consumes it, revealing that the creature requires medicine to counteract decay, with the powder serving as a temporary delay. Later, Freddy frequents a bar where he pats the dog at the entrance, consistently recognizing him regardless of the body. Seated at the bar, he requests a drink for Julia, a lonely woman surprised by his accurate guess of her favorite beverage. Freddy, disguising his familiarity through humor, discloses his frequent visits to the bar in various bodies and observes Julia's nightly solitary drinking. Their conversation blossoms, prompting them to move to the alley behind the bar for an impassioned kiss. Suddenly, Freddy experiences abdominal pain and panics, urging Julia to leave. He realizes the pain is from Emily's body's wound, a cause for concern as wounds have never jumped bodies with him. Clutching his abdomen, he walks down the street and employs his police badge to harass a couple in a car. Rachel is promptly ousted, but Freddy compels Sam to stay, aiming to steal his body. Sam tries to resist, but the creature prevails in the end. Subsequently, the new Sam takes the car to a secluded spot to obliterate the body with a hammer, interrupted by a call from his wife urging him to return. Sam goes home to his family, only to discover their turbulent relationship. The next morning, a child disturbs him, triggering a frustrated outburst due to the persistent pain from the wound. Ignoring his family, Sam hastily heads to his dental office, where he realizes that Rachel is the receptionist. A recollection reveals Sam's past harassment of Rachel, and she turned him down, prompting Freddy to intervene and save her. Given that the creature has inhabited a dentist's body before, it continues treating Sam's patients. During a lunch break, Sam encounters Julia on the street, prompting an attempt to follow her. A taxi driver refuses, citing stalking concerns. To distract himself, Sam opts for a solitary movie outing. In the evening, he shares dinner with his family, feeling increasingly depressed as he struggles to recall any memories predating his body-jumping experiences. Haunted by the urge to kill and seeking solace in alcohol, Sam heads to the bar, ignoring his family's pleas. Julia joins him and recognizes him from Rachel's presence. Sam confides in her about his troubled marriage, expressing a desire for some carefree enjoyment. In turn, Julia reveals her past family, a husband and a son. Julia shares the heartbreaking story of her son's death from a severe illness at the age of 3, which strained her marriage for years. Despite the strain, her husband surprised her with a romantic dinner one night, providing a fleeting moment of joy. Following morning, Julia woke up to find her husband mysteriously gone without a trace. After sharing a drink with Julia, Sam excuses himself to the bathroom and realizes that the body he's in is starting to decay. Panicking, he bids farewell to Julia and seeks refuge in a motel, where he indulges in more happy powder. Hours later, he becomes agitated as he notices the rapid spread of decay, prompting him to urgently search for a new body. Sam calls Rachel, apologizing for their past and claiming he's sick, asking for her help. Rachel arrives at the motel, and when Sam doesn't open the door, she cautiously enters the darkened room. In a surprising twist, Sam seizes the opportunity to grab Rachel, transferring into her body. The new Rachel stares at the desiccated body on the bed, takes more medicine, and receives a call from her boyfriend, requiring her to concoct an excuse for leaving in the middle of the night. In the morning, the new Rachel disposes of the dismembered body and bags at the barn, planning to burn the evidence. However, a neighbor spots her and inquires about the barn's owner, noting a peculiar smell. Without uttering a word, Rachel hastily drives away, returning to the dentist's office where she uses her employee key to pilfer a substantial amount of medicine. Rachel heads to her apartment and regularly takes medicine in the hope of staving off decay. In the evening, she decides to dress up and visit a bar, oblivious to her boyfriend Tommy observing her departure. Welcomed again by the dog, she sits next to Julia, who recognizes her as Sam's previous date. They converse, and Julia remarks on Rachel's melancholic eyes, offering her counseling services and a business card for support. Julia leaves to speak with Robert, and John takes her seat, making advances towards Rachel. Initially focused on spying on Julia and Robert, Rachel eventually succumbs to John's advances to divert attention. However, a TV broadcast reveals Rachel as the primary suspect in the barn case. Faced with the need to escape, she agrees to accompany John to her apartment. They consume happy powder, but when John becomes overly aggressive and attempts coercion, Rachel defends herself by pushing him away. In a tense confrontation, Rachel grabs a knife, initiating a struggle. John disarms her momentarily, but she retaliates by breaking a bottle over his head, overpowering him and reclaiming the knife. After a stabbing exchange, John attempts to flee downstairs, but Rachel pursues him, inflicting multiple stab wounds. Returning to her apartment, Rachel gathers essentials for escape. As Rachel attempts to leave, she discovers a neighbor reporting to the police, prompting a swift escape. However, she is spotted by cops outside, managing to outrun them and find refuge in an old garage through a hidden alley. The next morning, she wakes up to find the dog beside her and her skin already exhibiting signs of decay. Numerous missed calls from her boyfriend Tommy indicate his concern, and he arrives at the garage having tracked her phone. Desiring answers about her appearance on the news, Rachel strikes him with a bat and flees. Tommy attempts to follow, but Rachel hides in the back of a truck, enduring abdominal pain. Realizing the urgency to find a new body, Rachel avoids taking Tommy's to prevent implicating him in the investigation. Feeling time running out, she goes to the address on Julia's business card to disclose the truth. However, she finds Julia meeting with Robert, triggering jealousy. As the rotting on her arm worsens, Rachel decides to stalk Robert instead of Julia. She follows him to his house, posing as a delivery person and killing Robert for his body when he opens the door. Subsequently, Robert confesses his feelings to Julia over the phone, and she agrees to join him for dinner. Enjoying their time together, Julia senses something familiar about Robert but cannot articulate it. Robert flirts with her and quickly shares a kiss. As Julia and Robert's relationship evolves into a passionate and intimate connection, Julia discovers the wound on Robert's abdomen during their intimate moments. Despite his request to overlook it, they continue to enjoy a fulfilling relationship filled with dates, fun, and moments of intimacy. Robert, content with what he has, doesn't feel the need to seek a new host immediately, occasionally taking care of the previous bodies, disposing of the last one in the river, and consistently taking medicine. Their happiness takes a turn when Julia learns about 6 deaths in town, realizing that she had met all those people at the bar. Comforted by Robert's hug, she sees the news and becomes alarmed. That night, Robert, experiencing rotting on his hand and abdominal pain, decides it's time to reveal the truth. He shares his earliest memory from 1954, recounting accidentally taking over his mother's body as a child. Uncertain of his nature and whether there are others like him, he recalls feeling his mother's pure love in her body. Since then, he has been jumping from body to body, never experiencing such pure love until he took over Julia's husband's body. Robert confesses that he orchestrated the romantic night they spent together and had hated leaving her the next morning. Nearly every day afterward, he returned to the bar in different bodies, attempting to reconnect with her. Initially skeptical, Julia has a breakdown when Robert accurately describes the details of their romantic night. Fearing for her safety, she retrieves a taser from her bag. Despite Robert's assurances of love and no harm, Julia, overwhelmed by fear, tases him and punches him several times. In a desperate bid for survival, Robert touches her, stealing her body to continue his elusive existence. Devastated by the realization that she killed the woman she loves, Julia seeks solace in the bar, where she expresses gratitude to the bartender for always being there for her. That night, she makes a surprising decision not to body jump, allowing the rotting to overtake her body. Unexpectedly, her power transforms her into a peculiar cocoon, and she spends the entire night inside. Upon breaking free from the cocoon the next morning, the creature, now in the form of an old man covered in wounds, rushes to the mirror. Perplexed by this transformation, he contemplates its implications and decides to visit the park to reflect. There he finds companionship with the dog, pondering the mysteries of his existence and the consequences of his actions. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. If you enjoyed this recap, check out one of these.